So in this tutorial, we're going to learn how to do picots. So that's this little guy here. So it's quite a 3D sort of stitch or technique. So if I move the frame around a little bit, you can see that's sticking right up from the fabric. Almost a little leafy shape. So that could go quite nicely with your roses, with your woven wheels. So similar to the woven wheels, you're not going to be going through the fabric. So for this one, you can have a much longer length of thread. So I have some variegated thread. So that means that the color changes. So it goes from a much lighter green to a much darker green. So yeah, you want a good long piece of thread because you don't want to be stopping and starting with this, okay? You want enough thread to get you through the entire piece. So you also need a pin, just a normal kind of dressmaker's pin. One with a little ball on top can be good, depending on how long you want your picots. So you're going to put your pin into the fabric and you're going to bring it up again further down. Say about there. Oh, I'm out of the picture. So just do that again. You're going to put your pin into the fabric and then you're going to bring it up again further down the fabric. Okay, and this is going to decide how long your picot is. Okay, so if you want a really long picot, you want to put your pin in much longer. If you want a smaller one, just a smaller piece of the fabric in the pin there. Okay, so I'm going to do roughly around the same size as the one I did earlier. So you have your pin in there, and then you are going to get your thread and you're going to come up on one side of the end of the pin, so the pointy end. You're going to come up on one side. You're going to wrap around, not all the way around, but just kind of catch it in behind the pin there. And you're going to go back through the fabric on the other side of the pin. So where the pin is coming out of the fabric here, that should be your kind of halfway point between these two, where the thread is coming in and coming out. Okay, so you should end up with this sort of triangle shape. Yeah? Then you're going to come up again, kind of as close as you can get to that halfway point where the pin is coming out. Obviously, it's very hard to get exactly in there because the pin is in the way, but you want to be nice and close to that point. And just pull your thread all the way through. Okay, so all the way through with your thread. And again, so I'm on sort of the left hand side of this pin, so I'm going to bring it up on the left and catch in behind the pin again. Okay, if you came up on the right side, go the opposite way, but if you can, go the same way as me, so it's a little bit easier to follow. All right, so slightly on the right and wrapping around from the, or slightly on the left and wrapping around from the left to the right. Okay, so this is like your vertical lines. If you watched the needle weaving tutorial, this is like those vertical lines when you do your weaving. So we've created our own here, and now we're going to do the horizontal line, so that back and forth across we're going to do. So you want to go over and under and alternate that, right? So we're going over and under and over. Okay, so that first one is going to be a little bit tricky because that thread is quite loose. So just when you get it through, just pull it as tight as you can there. Okay. And then on the way back, we're going to alternate. All right, so where we went under the middle one on that first one, we're going to go under the outside ones this time. So under the outside, over the middle, and under the other outside. Okay, so you're constantly alternating whether you're going over or under. And just push those bits of thread up so that they're nice and close together. And again, so we just went under the outside lines, so we're going to go over them and under the middle and over. And just pulling your thread all the way through. And then making sure you pull that thread up to the top, so you can kind of use your needle just to have it sit in there nicely. And then again, back the other way, under and over and under. So you can angle your needle. You may have noticed I'm doing it there. You can angle your needle whichever way is easiest for you, or if it's easier for you to kind of turn your frame to one side, that's absolutely fine. So again, over and under and over. And we're just going to keep on going with this all the way down the shape. And just pushing up every so often to make sure those threads are sitting nice and close together. You do also want to be careful when you're going over and under that you're not going through the threads. So here, when I'm going under, I want to be careful that I'm getting all the way under and I'm not splitting the thread, okay? Because that just makes life a bit more complicated for you. And just pushing up again. The other thing that you want to be aware of is that when you pull here, that you're not pulling so tight that you're bringing those vertical lines in. So you don't want to be squeezing them in when you're pulling across there, okay? Or that'll distort your shape a little bit. So you want to pull tight enough that there's no gaps, there's no kind of loose thread. So, I mean, obviously I want to pull tighter than that, but I don't want to pull so tight that I'm pulling that thread in, okay? Do you see that? So just tight enough to get it lying in place. So just continuing with that, a little over and under alternating all the way down. So I'll come back to you when I have most of that filled in, and I have something else to show you. So when you get all the way down to the end here, you want to make sure that you have pushed that as far up as you can and that you can't fit in any more. I might just fit in one more there. Just about. Okay. So when you feel like you can't fit in anything else, you can take that pin out. You can stand that up, and if you just use your finger, your fingernail, and just make sure there's no gaps there, that it's definitely all kind of pushed up together as far as it can go, then you're just going to go down through the fabric at the end there. Okay, just to finish that off, down through the fabric, and you can do your little stab stitches in close to that, or if depending on your design, if there's another spot to do your stab stitches in, that's fine, but you can sort of hide them in under the picot there. And that just finishes it off. So you can have that standing up nice and tall there. You can have it so that you can move it around a little bit. But if you want to stitch it into a particular position, you can as well. So if I wanted it to be more kind of curled, I can just hold that in place. And if I bring my needle up and just catch the top of it there, and have that kind of laying like that instead. So maybe if I turn the frame a little bit, you can see that better. So rather than having it standing up like that, I can have it stitched in place, so it doesn't move around so much. If you have a much longer picot, you might want to do that. Just stitch it. You could even put a stitch in the side of it to make sure it sits in there. So if I put a stitch in the side of it here, it gives it a different shape as well. Okay, so you can really play around with that, kind of do whatever you like with it. You can make them obviously much longer than I have, much shorter as well if you want, if you only want a little tiny bit sticking out. But yeah, I think these are a lot of fun. They really add a lot of dimension to a piece, especially if you have woven wheels in, because they already add a little bit of dimension. So adding these in as well just makes it really really stand out, really 3D. But yeah, have fun with your picots. If you have any questions, do let me know.